Anybody here ever had to deal with fear? Maybe anxiety or anger. Look, I'm not pointing any fingers. I know that I have. Let me take you back to where I'm 18 years old. I'm with all my good buddies, and we're at a fireworks show. Thousands of people around. Fireworks are going off everywhere. Everybody seems to be having an amazing time. Everybody, really except us. And for some stupid reason, we meet another group of guys that are just as angry as we are, just as fearful as we are, and we get in a huge brawl in the streets. And as the chaos is ensuing, I turn and I see my buddy about ready to get punched in the face. And at 18 years old, I make one of the most pivotal decisions of my life. As I react without thinking, I push my friend out of the way, and I kick this guy as hard as I can in the face. Like, ah! I'm ashamed to say right now that in that moment, I was actually proud of myself. That's until I saw his body fall, and I seen his head crack against the concrete. And then all of a sudden, somebody tries to tackle me from the side, and I turn and I go to punch them. And I realize that I've got a handcuff on my right wrist. An undercover cop that had seen everything slams me face first down to the ground. He handcuffs my hands behind my back, yanks me to my feet, and throws me in the back of his patrol car. My head's just spinning. I'm like, how did this all go bad so fast? We're supposed to be having a good time at a fireworks show. And I look up, and I see the guy that I kicked is still motionless on the ground. And the police are working diligently to revive him, and they call for help from an ambulance and the fire department. And with him still in that same state, unconscious, I'm whisked away to the police station where I'm handcuffed, I'm booked, I'm processed, they take my mug shot, and they throw me in the back of the jail cell. And as I'm sitting there, I'm like trying to process, why am I angry all the time? And as an adult, I can understand it, but as a kid, I didn't understand that my learning disabilities had something to do with it. You see, when I couldn't meet my own expectations or the expectations of other people, and I failed, I felt ashamed. And that shame built resentment, and that resentment built anger. I mean, I still deal with it today, but I can laugh at it as an adult. I mean, I'll sit down at the computer and I'll type something up, and spell check is like, we have no idea what you're trying to say here. But at that moment in my life, I dealt with it one way. You see, I stuffed it all down inside. I hid it. I was too embarrassed to tell anybody, and I wrapped it around in this tough guy persona. But it didn't work. Because here I am in a jail cell, still dealing with fear, the fear that I kill someone and I'm going to spend the rest of my life in jail. Still dealing with shame. Ashamed of what I did. Ashamed of how my family's going to feel. Before too long, a police detective came in, he sat across from me. Where he let me know that through the grace of God, that person made a full recovery. And then he sat down and he asked me one simple question. He said, it looks like you've gotten a second chance here, John Petrelli. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? I couldn't answer it. I couldn't think past that moment at that time in my life. All I knew is that my buddies were waiting outside for me at that police station, and there was no way I had the self-confidence to let them know how afraid I was, to let them know how ashamed I was. So when I walked out and that jail cell closed behind me, I kept my tough guy persona, and I had to go in two different directions. I got to go to college, and I had to go to court. And when my trial came up, the judge and the DA somehow saw something in me that deserved a second chance. And they offered me what's called the 12-month conditional. Now, if you're not aware of what that is, it's okay, neither was I. It simply means that all I have to do is stay out of trouble for just 12 months. Just 12 months. That should be more than enough motivation for anybody to stay out of trouble. And I'm proud to say that for a while it worked for me. I went to college. I stopped drinking. I stopped hanging out with my buddies at night where I could get in trouble. And I focused on my studies. And for the first time in a really long time, I got decent grades. And that built self-confidence. It gave me enough confidence to know I needed to do something positive with my emotions like anger, with fear, and channel it into something. And for me, that was waiting. We all have to find something positive to put your energies into, whatever that may be for you. And right here, where I'm standing, is where I wish I could tell you that I lived happily ever after. But unfortunately, there's a term my Italian mom used all the time. It's called testa dura. Testa dura. It means you're a hardhead. I've been charged with that, and I'm guilty of it. Because not long after this, I'm back in the street with all my buddies, and we're in a huge brawl. And this time when the cops come to break it up, a local thug lets us all know that the next time he sees us, he is going to shoot and kill us. That was it for me. That was my awakening. I had to make the toughest decision of my life at that point and leave the two things that I cared most about: my family and my friends. Now, please understand, I'm not blaming my friends. It wasn't their fault that my mentality could not handle the dynamic of our relationship. You see, we all have to evaluate our peer group and our relationships. You may be good on your own, and your friends may be good on their own. But when you get together, are you making each other better, or are bad things happening? When I had an honest assessment of my life, and I didn't have many options, I made a phone call to a buddy of mine who lived in California. And when he understood the gravity of my situation, and that I might have been in jail or dead, he invited me to come and live with him in California. And with $500 to my name and everything I owned in a single bag, I boarded a plane and I went to California. And as the miles passed underneath me on that plane, I felt the weight of the world coming off of my shoulders. All I wanted to do was redefine myself. All I wanted to do was lose my tough guy image. And when I got to California, for the first time in a really long time, I felt happiness. And my buddy never knew how that one kind gesture literally changed the trajectory of my whole life. But I did. And I wanted him to know how grateful I was. I wanted to take him out to celebrate at a fancy restaurant. So we got in the car, and we pulled into the parking lot of Denny's, and as we're looking for, hey, don't judge me. Denny's had all-you-can-eat pancakes. And I wasn't the only one interested in all-you-can-eat pancakes because the parking lot is full. We can't find a parking spot. And we're driving around looking for a spot, and this kind lady waves us over to let us know she's leaving. So I put my blinker on, I take her spot, and as she pulls out, a pickup truck with two guys in it cuts in front of me, honks their horn, and takes my spot. I am like, hell no. There ain't no way they're going to disrespect me in front of my buddy, pump me out. I put the car in park. I start getting out of the car. My buddy Jimmy puts his hand on my shoulder. And he says, stay in the car, John. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? I'm not going to let them pump me out like that and be disrespectful. said, "You are being more disrespectful to your own future by reacting with emotions like anger and not thinking. In fact, you're so focused on what they're doing that you didn't see the 2 parking spots that just became available. You see, when you are focused on negativity, you can't even see opportunity." Yo, I wanted to argue with him with every fiber of my being. I wanted to be right, but I had to take myself out of the frame to see the whole picture. And then I started thinking, what would just have happened if it was one of my good buddies from back home in the passenger seat? We would have been in Denny's, covered in maple syrup and pancake batter, and I would have broke my 12-month conditional over pancakes in a parking spot. Do you know how ridiculous it would be to go to jail over pancakes in a parking spot? So I started surrounding myself with people that would challenge my perspective, that would have me look at the whole picture. I worked hard for 30 years, and I ended up becoming one of the most sought-after fitness trainers in the whole nation, working with thousands of people, including celebrities and athletes. And as I worked hard to shape and transform their bodies, without me even knowing, they helped shape and transform my mentality. They taught me things like resilience, compassion for other people and myself, community. And I was going to need every ounce of that new mentality in 2021, because I came down with a rare autoimmune disorder called Guillain-Barré syndrome. Y'all know I can't spell it. I had never heard of it before, so let's just call it GBS. But in the matter of a week, I go from doing jiu-jitsu and boxing and helping people stay in shape to being fully paralyzed, all by myself in the ICU. And as I laid there, looking up at the ceiling, that would have been the perfect spot for 20-year-old John Petrelli to go, "Why is this happening to me? I don't deserve this. I've been good for the last 30 years. To be full of anger, to be full of shame, to be afraid." But instead, I wanted to do something to inspire other people dealing with similar adversity so they know we can use our mentality to navigate any situation. So I decided to write a book. Yeah, right there in that moment too. That's where 20-year-old John Petrelli go, write a book. Dude, you got learning disabilities. You forgotten? You've been arrested. But I let the need for helping people surpass my fear of failure. And yes, there were times where I thought I wouldn't be good enough in my mind, where I still sat down at the computer and spell check is like, "We still have no idea what you're trying to say." But my co-author Scott and I put together a book, and it ends up becoming an instant Amazon #1 release. Please understand, I'm not telling you this to pump up my ego. I'm not telling you this to sell more books. I am telling you this because if I can do this with shame, if I can do this with being arrested, imagine what you can do. Imagine. You see, I want to be able to come to the end of my life and answer that simple question that detective asked me that day in that jail cell. And he said, "John Petrelli, what are you going to do with the rest of your life. I want to tell him, sir, I worked as hard as I could to help as many people as possible master their mindset so they could transform their lives. You see, when you do this, you can invent who you want to be. You can invent who you will be. And then if you're not happy, you can reinvent yourself again. So please, all of you, go out there. Be the authors of your own life.